I'm Danny Epperson inside the stately Commodore Dinner Theater in downtown Portsmouth. Thanks for joining me for WHRO Cinema 15 and our presentation of 1939's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington isn't a film about politics. Frank Capra's 1939 classic is a movie about patriotism and literally standing up for what you believe in. Even though it's set in the nation's capital, there are no references to Republicans or Democrats. There is no right or left. There's only right and wrong. Director Capra wanted his films to inspire audiences and show them the difference that one good person could make, even against incredible odds. It was a theme that he would repeat over and over in his career. In early 1939, Capra was riding high in Hollywood. His last film, 1938's You Can't Take It With You, a movie about loving thy neighbor, took home Oscars for Best Director and Best Picture. He was at a loss for a follow-up until he saw the two-page synopsis of an unpublished novel called The Gentleman from Montana, the story about an idealistic United States senator who fights against political corruption landed right in Capra's sweet spot. When it came time for casting, Capra didn't believe in screen tests. He preferred to trust his gut.
By far, the greatest picture of filmdom's top director, three-time winner of the coveted Academy Award.
In this case, his gut told him to bring back the two stars of his last film. Jimmy Stewart plays Jefferson Smith, a freshman senator and Founding Fathers superfan.
I don't think I've ever been so thrilled in my whole life. And that Lincoln Memorial.
And Gene Arthur plays Smith's cynical secretary.
Playing straight for that phony patriotic chatter. Me, carrying bibs for an infant with little flags in his fists.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, winning for Best Original Story. I'll stop filibustering and come back after the film to tell you who didn't want to go to Washington with Mr. Smith. But for now, grab your sparklers, hot dogs, and apple pie. Hit the lights and enjoy Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Some critics consider Mr. Smith Goes to Washington to be Frank Capra's finest film. Others have called it the most patriotic American film ever made, but not everybody was a fan. In 1939, the war against Nazi Germany had begun in Europe. Joseph Kennedy, the U.S. ambassador to Great Britain, thought that Capra's film sent the wrong message about democracy. He worried that it would damage America's prestige overseas. The Boy Scouts of America didn't want to be connected to the movie, so Jefferson Smith became the leader of the Boy Rangers. And there were plenty of politicians and members of the Washington Press Corps who found the film unflattering for obvious reasons.
Why don't you tell the people the truth for a change?
Oh, the truth. The man wants the truth.
The man wants the truth. What is the truth, said jesting Pilate, and would not stay for an answer.
How do you want it, Senator? Dished out or in a bottle?
But the movie-going public loved it, and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was the movie that made Jimmy Stewart a star.
Well, that's all right. I just wanted to find out whether you still had faces.
Filming the final filibuster scene wasn't easy. In order to sound like he'd been talking for 23 hours, Stewart hired a doctor to come to the set and drop a mercury compound into his throat. The solution caused mild swelling and gave him a natural rasp.
Even if this room gets filled with lies like these.
One thing the doctor couldn't transform was Jimmy Stewart's height. At 6'3", Stewart was pretty tall for an underdog. Capra compensated with some interesting filmmaking techniques. I bet you didn't notice how often he was shot sitting down. But as Smith's belief in himself grew, so did his height. In the final scene, he's standing tall above everyone else in the room, delivering a speech that brought down the House, or in this case, the Senate. That's all I have for this week. I'm Danny Epperson, and I'll see you next time for WHRO Cinema 15 and another classic movie. I'm Danny Epperson. Here's a classic movie quiz. 1939's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington stars Jimmy Stewart.
I don't think I've ever been so thrilled in my whole life.
Who played his mother in the film?
Senator Jefferson Smith.
It was Beulah Bondi, who played that same role in 3 other Stewart films. You provide the popcorn, the couch, and the TV. We'll provide great movies like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Watch Cinema 15, Saturday night at 8 on WHRO TV 15.